There's one thing was always surprising to me is that once you go to study School of Architecture, you want to be an architect. You would like to design buildings, and the ultimate goal is to be a leader of a studio, to have your own firm, and to set up an agenda. But then the skills you learn in the school, I think it's the skills of employee actually. It is a skill of somebody who is working on small tasks, but they are given by somebody else, and I think that's not okay. Like if this should be somehow in the relationship. So if you would like to be the one who set up the agenda, you need to like see it in the training. Like it should be part of your education, and it means like you are discovering something, you are finding an agenda, you are meeting people, you are finding a problem, you are finding not a problem, but you are finding qualities, and you are very initiative, and it's not given by somebody else. It's not someone who say, okay, this is the brief, read the brief, design it. I think that doesn't work like this. That's really a work of employee. Somebody would like work on this small detail, do that, and and especially if it's studies in abroad, I think it's extremely difficult because you go to a different context, you go to a different society, you don't know it, you don't know a lot, so you are almost like a non-swimmer in a pond, and then suddenly, and of course, like in very short time, 90 days.
But there is a big advantage if you go abroad, because if you do it at home, you have all stereotypes which you have, and if you go abroad, basically you don't need to work, you don't know the stereotypes, so it's much more easier to work with. So if you make mistake, it's basically given, like, okay, you can be accepted by the, I don't know, other place. So I think this is huge advantage of being somewhere else where you don't know the culture, where you don't know basically the basic actually relationship, that your mistakes or your faults will be much more understood than at home, but it's expected that you have to know this.
And of course, that might sound, like it's not interesting for students, but maybe mainly for us. We do enjoy meeting people who don't know the context, and we do enjoy them saying things like as they see that as a foreigners, because of course it's something new to us, and because it's new, we need to react on that, and I think then it's a dialogue. So it's not like one way, and I think it's important for students who comes in here that they would understand that they could bring a lot. It's not about like that they don't know something and they need to learn it, but actually by not knowing that, they could bring a lot of new perspectives and new thinking. So I think in that sense, the freedom of they would do in here is much bigger than maybe they would expect.
But I think it's just given by the condition. It's easy because the students basically reach a certain point where they have to ask basic question, and this basic question can be how I'm satisfied with my housing because where I live in Prague, and this basic question can end up, how I'm satisfied with the public transport, and if you raise this question, as a student, actually you have your topic, you have your agenda, and that is basically something you can follow, and I think that is very important, like what we try with this openness, what Adam came up, okay, you live somewhere, you come to school, it's some 5 kilometers, and you will see basically in radius of 1 kilometer something happening, so go there, exercise, see what's happening, and look for the good things which you can improve or the things which you want to make better,
What was a bit surprising to me, what I heard from students, they said, we actually enjoy that in the studio we have to deal with everyday life, and we are not used to that. We design important buildings, theaters, museums, galleries, or something like that, something exceptional. And we even didn't think that the so-called like small everyday life is part of our job. And that was really surprising to me because I was like, that's almost the only thing, I think. Like in a way, theater is a part of everyday life. Of course, like it's big, exceptional, but that's what you should deal with. So, and I think then probably what you mentioned a bit is that the crucial part of this analytical research thing is also the way how you see things. So you need to learn how to look at things and not be satisfied with what you see on a first look, but kind of like observe something more regularly. Observe it in the morning, in the evening, during the rain, and during when it's crowded, when it's empty, and to see it like all the time and look and ask questions like, what do I see? Like, and how what do I think about it? And this kind of process is very long and it's painful and you don't see results. So very often people get impatient because they feel like, okay, I'm not designing yet, and half of the semester is gone. But I think this is the crucial task, like how to kind of like postpone decisions, because you can't make decisions because it's not based on anything. So if you, I think like if you are trained in how to prolong the period of not designing, but like to kind of setting up the agenda, I think probably that's what we try to do in here. Because probably the crucial problem of architecture in recent years is that you give answer and you don't know question, and uh, and and I was so surprised how people could be like easygoing about it. You know, like they are asked to do international airport, they know nothing about it, and next day they've got two versions of it. You know, like how can you do that? And I think like that this is something we try to do. Is like, you know, you can't do it unless you know this, and probably that's the most important thing, is that almost like to know what you don't know. There's one really important thing, because if you don't give students this brief, I can imagine that some of them would say, okay, they've been lazy, you know, they didn't have time to properly do that for us, you know, like, so, you know, it's really bad start, because like normally if they would spend time on that, they would probably provide us paper with square meters and square footage and everything will be fine, but they didn't do that, so it's kind of tricky. And I think they really need to understand that, because we didn't do that not because we didn't have time, but because it's their work, and it could be really fulfilling work, because like you don't have to do something that somebody asked, but you discover somewhere in here. And I think this is something that if you learn this, you can apply it in everything you do till the rest of your life. And I think that's why probably that's what we try to do in here.
What is also important, I'll just come back to your research issue. It's important when we speak about research, basically, at the end you end up maybe on some site, on some specific question, you know, but always we try to focus on the something as a whole city, you know. So that's why, for example, it's very important if you are here for 3 weeks, 5 weeks, 14 weeks, basically, maybe more than half of your time should be basically questioning yourself, where am I, you know.
You should live architecture 24 hours a day, and it's a bit of exaggeration, but I think that's how it is. It's about that your everyday life is actually part of your studio. It's part of what you do in here, because like you are seeing stuff which can influence your project. And the same goes with traveling. I think a lot of students, when they came here, they would like to travel, and of course, like I think it's great. They would like to see different cities, but it's important that they bear in their mind that what they see in the other cities is related to their project in here, and it could help them to develop the project much better, because they've got the relationship.
That's actually, I don't see the profession of architect to continue on Adam actually as something you should focus on the basically design. You know, design is if you're running really the office, you know, as this principle of the office. So you're designing, if you're super lucky, 2% of your time. You know, and everything around is architecture as well in your actually 24 hours. And what is around is basically is negotiation, is basically to look for the opportunities, to look basically for the topics, to convince the people, to do the researches, to speak and to speak and to speak and to make the program and all these things, you know. And basically for me, or not for me, but if you go to the all actually architecture offices who are basically, if you want to speak about superstars or whatever, you know, agenda of these people is always not to design something but to question something, you know. So if you go to the successful office, you know, you will never get at the end, you know, direct answer, but you'll get as investor much more questions. So this is important to bring this experience already to the school, you know, not to give the program. This is the program of your future building you have to design, you know, and then to start from this moment, you know. There is 90% of work for this program, and I think all architects should do this work, and schools should train students actually to work this 90%. And unfortunately, we are very often, you know, starting in this last 5%, you know, okay, here is the program, here is the site, here is the square meters, and please design something, you know, and that is basically just the end of something. one of our architects said that at the end, after explaining this very turbulent process of 20 years designing on one side, and he said in one moment, all I want is to design the buildings, you know. And basically, but this paradigm belongs to 19th century. You know, you cannot design today. You know, you have to basically create. And he said also, you have to create the process. You know, and I think that no other profession, you know, neither politician, neither developers basically have basically tools to create this process. And I think that architects can be somebody who basically from the position of his office or their office, actually or from the position of communicating to initiate and to create these processes. So at the end, if we speak about big scale things, it is not at the end to count certain cubic and square meters, but at the end it is to design the process. And at the end, I should stop the project before putting any program. But if I create the right process, how this thing will go on, how it will continue, this is basically what is for me architecture in the future. Because if I go actually in this hyper production of architects today, you know, what is the fact, you know, in Europe? Basically, we have very much people who are able to design very nice buildings. So, but where the profession has big kind of expectation, and I personally have expectation, is to work on this what's happening before design, and that's something what is totally new agenda, I think, for architecture, and it's not trained in the schools at all.
I think part of the experience in here is that students, they figure out that they don't have to limit themselves to deal with small part of the profession, and they could expand, and it's actually gonna be uploaded by us, you know, like by as kind of like bigger issue you deal with, or an, I don't know, complicated, or you bring new stuff to what do you think about, everybody would say great, you know, like even it's more complicated, even maybe the result is not such a great thing because you actually been dealing with something you are not able to do. That's what you should do. And to put it very simply, I think Igor was speaking about processes. I think we should also speak about content. Really, content is part of our job. And I really hate it when students and architects, they say that it's not, you know, it's like, actually we've been just hired to deal with this small thing, and this is not our responsibility. This is responsibility of somebody else. And I think the school should be about that. You realize it's part of your responsibility, and actually you can influence it. And you, of course, like very simply, you can say you don't have to do that. But I think there are not these only options like, okay, I'm gonna agree and I'm gonna do this thing, or I'm not gonna do this thing. And I think there's something in between that, okay, I'm gonna work on that and I can influence it maybe more than I was asked. And I think that's this kind of like initiative and willingness to do things that you've not been asked. That's an essential part of the profession. And very often the clients, they ask you something, and of course you need to do that. But then you should have also your own agenda and to do something else. And well, you can speak about it or you don't have to. And that's you. And what I think is to say it really as simple as I can. Projects are not really interesting. I mean, people are interesting. So the students in here, they are not here to do great projects. They are here to develop themselves.